Have you ever seen a place so beautiful that it is hard to believe it actually exists on Earth? Hidden among coastlines, forests, caves, lakes, and deserts are environments where unusual colors, extraordinary landscapes, and rare geological processes have created scenes that seem almost impossible to believe. Some of these places appear to challenge reality itself, with glowing waters, enchanted forests, underground cathedrals, and natural formations that look more like products of imagination than nature. Yet none of these wonders were created by humans. They were shaped over millions of years by natural forces acting in remarkable and unexpected ways. Today we explore some of the most surreal wonders on Earth, where reality can sometimes seem even more unbelievable than fiction. Las Salinas de Torrevieja, Spain. Like a piece of ocean dyed by imagination, Las Salinas de Torrevieja makes the line between reality and fantasy almost disappear. The lake water can contain up to 350 grams of salt per liter, about 10 times saltier than seawater, making this place feel like Europe's Dead Sea. Its bright pink color comes from microalgae and archaea, tiny organisms that create red pigments to protect themselves from strong sunlight in an extremely salty environment. Because it sits in a low basin below sea level, the lake works like an evaporation pan, where groundwater enters and leaves salt crystals along the shore. Under 104-degree Fahrenheit heat, the white lake edge sparkles like snow, while the water shifts from pale pink in the morning to vivid pink when the sun rises high. That sweet-looking beauty also feeds flamingos through red microorganisms, but the extreme salinity reminds us that this pink lake is still a harsh environment, not only a dreamy scene. Singing Sand Dunes, Kazakhstan. In a dry, rocky steppe, the singing sand dunes appear like a giant golden beast that can roar from inside its own body of sand. The dune is up to 2 miles long and 492 feet high, yet it stands alone between rocky mountains instead of being lost inside a vast desert. The sound does not come from the wind, but from billions of extremely dry quartz grains, each about 0.1 to 0.5 millimeters wide, sliding against one another and creating static friction. When the sand mass begins to slide down the slope, the deep rumble can reach 105 decibels at 65 to 105 hertz, making the ground vibrate through the chest. Although winds trapped between two mountain ranges have shaped it for thousands of years, the dune remains almost in place, like a strange balance between wind, rock, and gravity. At sunset, the dune glows like molten gold, while its roar echoes through the empty space, making this place feel both beautiful and mysterious, like a creature sleeping beneath the sand. Pink Sand Beach, Bahamas. The pink color of Pink Sand Beach is not a trick of light, but the tiny trace of marine life ground down over thousands of years. Foraminifera are only 0.1 to 0.5 millimeters long and live around coral, leaving red-pink shells behind when they die and are carried to shore by waves. The ocean keeps grinding those calcium shells into fine powder, then mixes them with white quartz sand to create a soft pink color that is never completely fixed. As tides and moisture change, the sand can look pale like chalk when dry, then become deeper pink when wet or after small storms. Offshore coral reefs keep the sea calmer, protecting the fine sand from being disturbed and making the water clear enough to see the bottom 33 feet below. This beach is therefore not only strangely pink, but also a fragile trace of a marine ecosystem still quietly leaving color on every grain of sand. Seven Sisters, United Kingdom. From a grassy edge that looks peaceful, Seven Sisters suddenly opens into a white stone wall, dropping straight into the sea, 253 feet below. That white color is the trace of countless tiny sea organisms with chalky shells, compressed between 65 and 100 million years ago. The chalk mass once lay under the seabed. Then ancient tectonic forces lifted it upward, allowing wind and waves to carve it day after day. The soft curves on the cliffs are dry river valleys from the Ice Age, while the black streaks are flint-formed from ancient sponge remains. The cliffs still retreat inland by 12 to 16 inches each year, and after strong storms, several feet of rock can disappear overnight. That constant change makes Seven Sisters feel like a living sculpture, where the sea is still quietly reshaping the outline of England every day. Agtelek Karst, Hungary. Beneath Europe, Agtelek Karst opens like a fossilized ancient sea, where darkness has preserved Earth's history for 220 million years. The limestone here was once sediment from a Triassic tropical ocean, later hollowed by groundwater into a cave network more than 16 miles long. In that eternal darkness, more than 500 cave-dwelling species live almost cut off from the outside world, with many gradually losing eyes and pigment to save energy. Every stone column grows unbelievably slowly because stalactites gain only about 1/10 to 2/10 of a millimeter each year under constant drops of lime-rich water. The cave climate stays around 50 degrees Fahrenheit, with humidity near 95 to 100%, creating mirror lakes, white, yellow, and red stone curtains, and even fossil-like waterfalls. When sound echoes deep through the giant chambers, this place feels not only like an underground theater, but also like a maze of time where people can forget the world above. Rubjerg Knud, Denmark. Rubjerg Knud is not just a lighthouse in the sand, but a place where the sea and wind pull the land into a slow disappearance. Every year, the North Sea eats 1.5 to 2 meters into the coast, causing the cliff to keep collapsing and turning the shoreline into something that is always changing. At the same time, wind pushes the dune up to 30 feet inland each year, building a sandmass about 295 feet high that can bury anything weaker than itself. That is why red brick fragments sometimes rise out of the sand, not only as ruins, but as proof that an entire area was swallowed layer by layer. In 1899, the lighthouse still stood 656 feet from the cliff edge, but after more than a century of erosion, that safe distance has almost been erased by nature. Every new fold of sand and every piece of coast falling into the sea turns Rubier Knud into a landscape that never stands still, where humans can only watch before nature writes its next shape. Sundarbans, Bangladesh, and India. In Sundarbans, neither land nor ocean is in control, because the tides constantly redraw a world that is half water and half forest. Built from the sediment of giant rivers, this area covers about 3,900 square miles and has grown into the largest continuous mangrove forest on Earth. Because the mud contains almost no oxygen, millions of breathing roots rise up to 1 foot above the ground, making the forest look as if it is growing upside down. As the tide rises and falls by as much as 23 feet, mud islands appear and disappear, blurring the boundary between river, sea, and land like a mirage. Inside this maze of murky water, Bengal tigers have adapted to life with the tides, swimming across wide channels and hunting in brackish water. From above, the shifting network of waterways, trees, and mudflats changes shape again and again, making Sundarbans feel less like a forest and more like a living creature in motion. Gjola Lagoon, Greece. Between dry rock and rough waves, Gjola Lagoon appears like a blue eye carved straight into the shore by the sea. This pool is about 66 feet long and 49 feet wide, formed as waves kept pressing into weak points in sedimentary rock over millions of years. Because there is no underground spring, the water is refreshed only when waves higher than 7 feet spill over the rock edge, pulling old water out and bringing new seawater in. The small body of water traps heat from the sun, so it is often 9 to 14 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the open sea and saltier because of constant evaporation. Only a rock wall, about 7 feet wide, separates the calm turquoise pool from the dark blue ocean, rolling just outside. That contrast makes Giolla Lagoon feel like a mythical infinity pool, but beneath its calm beauty is still a 10-foot deep rock basin that should be viewed with care. Monfragüe National Park, Spain. Under a sky where giant vultures glide like prehistoric shadows, Monfragüe appears like a green fortress locked between quartzite rock and ancient forest. This old forest covers more than 44,000 acres and preserves many plant species that have disappeared from other parts of Europe, like a living gene bank in a dry region. On cliffs about 400 million years old, more than 400 pairs of black vultures nest, using rising warm air like invisible elevators to fly without flapping their wings. They feed on carrion with extremely strong stomach acid, destroying disease and turning death into a cleaning link for the whole ecosystem. Below, humans have lived with nature for more than 1,000 years through open oak woodlands, harvesting cork while still keeping sunlight for the grassland. Night here opens a sky with almost no light pollution, letting the Milky Way appear above the old forest like a starry dome, protecting this wild land. Škocjan Caves, Slovenia. Beneath the peaceful hills of Slovenia, Škocjan hides a giant underground world where an entire river has carved through the earth for millions of years. That steady power created an underground canyon, more than 656 feet deep, and a cave chamber large enough to hold the entire Great Pyramid of Giza. At the bottom of the abyss, the icy river stays around 48 degrees Fahrenheit and keeps roaring, while the cave temperature remains close to 54 degrees Fahrenheit all year. During long, heavy rains, the water level can rise up to 328 feet in a short time, turning the seemingly frozen space into a violent underground flood. Along the rock walls stand stalagmite columns up to 49 feet high, built by tiny drops of water over more than 250,000 years. Endless darkness, echoing water, and a scale beyond imagination make Scotian feel like a real underground kingdom, where time and water carve the heart of the earth together. Mývatn, Iceland. In the cold land of ice, Mývatn feels like a calm lake, resting on ground that is still being torn apart by hidden fire. About 2,300 years ago, lava as hot as 2,192 degrees Fahrenheit flowed across wetlands, hit cold water, and exploded into countless pseudo-craters. This area lies on the boundary between two tectonic plates, where the ground is still being pulled apart by about 1 inch each year. Although the lake covers 14 square miles, it is very shallow, with an average depth of only 8 feet, allowing light and heat to reach close to the bottom. Around the lake are acid mud, sulfur steam, twisted basalt, and ground-stained iron red, sulfur yellow, and calcium white like a toxic alien planet. Yet beneath that harsh landscape, groundwater passing through lava rock creates hot mineral pools between 97 and 104 degrees Fahrenheit, turning Mývatn into a place where ice, fire, and life exist together. Playa de las Catedrales, Spain. Each day, the ocean reveals Playa de las Catedrales for only a few hours, as if allowing people to briefly enter a cathedral that truly belongs to stone and tide. Its 500-million-year-old cliffs were formed from ancient sea mud, later compressed into hard slate and quartz under the pressure of time. When the tide shifts up to 13 feet every 6 hours, the beach sometimes disappears underwater and sometimes exposes corridors, deep caves, and giant arches. Those arches were born as waves carrying sand and salt, kept grinding into weak cracks, slowly widening them over millions of years. But the same process that created this beauty is also destroying it, because arches up to 98 feet high are becoming thinner and may collapse when gravity overcomes the rock. Across wet sand reflecting the blue sky, wind hums through hollow caves like an organ, making this place feel like a Gothic cathedral of the sea, and as fragile as the moment before the tide returns. Isola Bella, Italy. From an almost useless barren rock, this island was transformed into an extreme proof of human ambition to control nature. Before the 17th century, it was only a dry surface in the lake with little living soil and almost no value to local people. That is why the terraced garden, shaped like a truncated pyramid with 10 levels, is not just beautiful scenery, but an attempt to build an entire artificial world on bare stone. To turn that bare rock into a living garden, people had to guide and control lake water constantly, so the plants, fountains, and whole artificial landscape would not dry out. When music and art take place here, the surrounding water becomes a layer of resonance, making its luxury something people can not only see, but also hear. In 1797, Napoleon Bonaparte stayed here, and his sense of awe shows that Isola Bella is not simply a beautiful island, but a statement of power made from architecture and nature. Gulpiyuri Beach, Spain. Gulpiyuri is a paradox of nature, a beach with waves and tides, even though it lies completely inland. More than 328 feet from the ocean, this limestone sinkhole is connected to the sea by underground tunnels carved by water for more than 2 million years. Those tunnels carry seawater beneath the land, making the tide inside the pool always move later than the rise and fall of the open ocean outside. Even in hot summer, the water here stays around 59 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit, because it passes through dark, cold caves before appearing on the surface. The white sand underfoot was not created in place, but came from sand and shells on the seabed, carried inward by underground water, and collected over thousands of years. Inside this enclosed space, the small pool still breathes with the rhythm of the distant sea, turning Gulpayuri into a real illusion in the middle of the land. Thermal springs of Saturnia, Italy. In the white mist rising from the ground, Saturnia looks like terraced pools, quietly boiling with the heat of the earth. The underground spring flows continuously at about 132 gallons per second, enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool in less than 1.5 hours. This water is rain that soaked underground at least 40 years ago, passing through porous volcanic rock before returning to the surface with minerals. Its temperature stays around 100 degrees Fahrenheit all year, close to human body temperature, while underground gases make the surface bubble as if it were being heated. Over thousands of years, calcium in the water has naturally hardened into rounded white stone steps, creating milky blue, natural bathing pools. On misty mornings, the sound of falling water and hot steam make this place feel like an ancient spa built by stone, gas, and water themselves. Green Lake, Austria. A winter park can disappear beneath cold green water, and that is what makes Green Lake feel like limestone mountain magic. In winter, this place is only a dry hollow 3 to 7 feet deep, but when snow melts in May, the water can rise to about 39 feet in just a few weeks. Even in midsummer, the water stays between 39 and 46 degrees Fahrenheit because it comes directly from snow and ice, cold enough to shock the body if someone falls in suddenly. Visibility can reach 164 feet, because mountain meltwater is filtered through countless limestone cracks, leaving mud and impurities behind before flowing into the lake. When the water rises, benches, paths, and wooden bridges sink below the surface, while grass and wildflowers remain underneath, like a park temporarily reclaimed by nature. By mid-July, the water drains back into underground cracks, returning the dry ground and leaving only the memory of an emerald lake that wakes for a few months each year. Lake Tahoe, USA. Lake Tahoe is not blue only because of the sky, but because its pure water turns light into a deep blue that feels like an ocean abyss. The lake has existed for about 2 million years, far longer than most North American lakes that formed after the last ice age. It holds about 39 trillion gallons of water, enough to cover all of California under a layer of water more than 1 foot deep. Its depth of 1,645 feet makes the bottom drop like a giant underwater cliff, where only a few steps from shore can lead to water hundreds of feet dark. Every day, about 330 million gallons of water evaporate into the dry mountain air, but the huge water mass keeps the lake from freezing even during -4 Fahrenheit winters. At twilight, cold mist rises from the lake while granite cliffs turn pink-orange, making the whole scene feel like a high mountain world that is both real and dreamlike. Yeta Grotto, Lebanon. Beneath cold limestone, Yeta Grotto opens like an underground palace carved by rainwater over millions of years. The cave system is nearly 6 miles long, but humans have accessed less than 30%, while the deeper parts remain in primitive darkness. Each drop of water seeps through limestone, dissolving and rebuilding minerals extremely slowly, with some formations needing about 100 years to grow only half an inch. That is why the cave holds giant stone columns, curtains as thin as silk, and a 27-foot stalactite hanging like a stone sword. Below, the underground river not only reflects the cave ceiling like a mirror, but also serves as an important freshwater source for more than 1.5 million people. Even when the outside heat can reach 104 degrees Fahrenheit, this underground world stays around 61 degrees Fahrenheit all year, making stone, water, and darkness feel preserved inside a cold box of time. Látrabjarg Cliffs, Iceland. At the far western edge of Iceland, the land does not end gently, but suddenly rises into a living wall where rock, wind, and millions of seabirds move together. The cliff line stretches 9 miles and rises up to 1,444 feet, dropping straight into the ocean, like the giant black and white edge of a sliced continent. The surreal fact is that this place is often seen as the western edge of Europe, while the rock beneath it actually belongs to the North American tectonic plate. During breeding season, 1 to 2 million seabirds cover the rock layers, making the vertical cliff look like a city built between sky and sea. The grass on top may look soft and safe, but underneath, birds can hollow it out into small burrows, making the cliff edge far more fragile than it appears. When white flocks fly backward through the cold wind, Látrabjarg no longer feels like an ordinary cliff, but like a surreal border between Europe, America, sky, and ocean. Nedi Massif, Chad. Hidden beneath the dead sand of the Sahara, Nedi feels like an ancient water storehouse locked inside sandstone, where life still quietly holds on in the drought. This plateau covers about 12,000 square miles and was formed from river sediments more than 300 million years ago, leaving countless hollow cracks inside like a stone sponge. Thanks to that structure, even though yearly rainfall is less than 2 inches and daytime heat can reach 122 degrees Fahrenheit, water still seeps deep, stays stored, and leaks out into small pools that do not dry up. Those isolated pools became the last refuge of small West African crocodiles a species that survived 10,000 years of desertification by adapting to little water and little food. On the rock walls, thousands of 7,000-year-old paintings of swimmers, cattle, elephants, and giraffes prove this dry, dead land was once a green savanna with water. That is why Enneady's giant arches, red mushroom pillars, and cold, dark canyons are not only strangely beautiful, but also feel like the last memory of a Sahara that was once greener than today. The Giant's Playground, Namibia. Amid the harsh desert of Namibia, the Giant's Playground looks like the abandoned construction site of giants, where thousands of massive boulders appear carefully stacked by an unseen hand. These unusual dolerite rocks were born from molten magma that cooled beneath the Earth about 160 to 180 million years ago. As the rocks slowly contracted during cooling, natural columnar fractures formed striking geometric shapes that resemble giant hexagons and pentagons. Bright orange and yellow lichens spread across the surfaces, creating a dramatic contrast against the cold gray-blue stone under the intense African sun. With temperature swings of up to 54 degrees Fahrenheit between day and night, the rocks constantly expand and contract, gradually reshaping and polishing themselves through time. The name The Giant's Playground comes not from ancient legend, but from humanity's attempt to describe a stone landscape so strangely organized that it still seems beyond easy explanation. Poás volcano, Costa Rica. From a volcano crater covered in white vapor, Poás appears like an alien lake breathing smoke, acid, and heat. The lake at the bottom of the crater has a pH between 0 and 1.5, making its gray-green water both strangely beautiful and extremely harsh. The crater is more than 1 mile wide and 984 feet deep, large enough for the mist above it to become a blurred dome, hiding the lake's surface. Below, magma heats underground water, so the lake temperature can shift sharply from 68 to 194 degrees Fahrenheit, making the surface constantly steam, as if boiling. That harsh beauty turns Poas into a surreal wonder, where people can see the fragile border between water, rock, toxic gas, and the heat inside Earth. Puzzlewood, United Kingdom. Under a blue twilight glow that feels as if it never ends, Puzzlewood appears like an ancient forest locked by time inside moss, roots, and broken stone. This place is a rare part of temperate rainforest, an ecosystem that now covers less than 1% of Earth's land. Beneath visitors' feet is 300-million-year-old limestone, formed from the shells of sea creatures when this area was still under the ocean. The strange deep cracks were not shaped only by water, but also by collapsed underground caves and iron mining activity dating back to Roman times. Moss, lichens, and ferns cover the rocks and soften every sound, while ancient tree roots crawl across the stone like pythons searching for soil. This dark, wet maze inspired eerie forests in fantasy literature, making Puzzlewood feel like an imaginary world that somehow became real. Tusua Ocean Trench, Samoa. Inside dense green land, Tusua Ocean Trench appears like a volcanic collapse that opened a path for the ocean to flow inland. The waterhole is nearly 100 feet deep, not like a normal pond, but like a giant hollow space carved straight into basalt rock. The strange thing is that the water inside still rises and falls with the tide, because an underground lava tube connects it directly to the Pacific Ocean. As seawater passes through porous basalt and mixes with freshwater springs, it is naturally filtered, creating a clear, emerald color. To touch the water, visitors must climb down a wooden ladder about 100 feet long, almost vertical between walls, covered with ferns and vines. When sunlight falls straight through the opening, this place feels not only like a natural swimming pool, but also like an underground doorway where land, water, and volcano meet. Cathedral Gorge, USA. In the Nevada desert, this place appears like an abandoned Gothic city, although every spire and deep canyon is shaped from volcanic mud rather than solid rock. Tens of millions of years ago, ash from massive eruptions fell into an ancient lake, then compressed into bentonite clay layers hundreds of feet thick. This clay can absorb up to 10 times its own weight in water, so when rain falls, it swells into soft mud, then shrinks and cracks under 100-degree Fahrenheit heat. Because the material is so soft, every rainstorm or strong wind directly carves away part of the landscape, making the earth walls visibly change within just a few decades. That erosion has accidentally created sharp spires, arches, narrow canyons, and folded walls like velvet curtains stretching across the desert. Late afternoon light awakens orange-red tones in the iron-rich soil, turning the pale grey maze into a scene like an earthen city quietly burning from within.